Hello and welcome back to the channel. We're here in my studio and the light is just coming in. It's a beautiful afternoon. When I found this house in mid-2024, I fell in love with it right away. Unfortunately, so did 10 other people that I had to place competing bids against. So if you are going through that home buying process right now, I completely get it. I understand how emotionally draining it can be and frustrating, especially if you've placed bids and you have not gotten the property that you wanted. I'm just going to encourage you to just let it go and trust that the right thing is for you and it's coming to you, and that you are even getting this information here today to help equip you in the best way possible. We're going to discuss the mid-century modern home demand, the design style itself, the renovation vision, the market opportunity, and the TLC needed. Being fully informed, you will remove any emotional hesitation or indecision that can cost you time and clarity when placing that bid that's gonna put you ahead against other bidders. So let's get into it, shall we? If you are not familiar, mid-century modern homes are a style of architecture, of residential architecture, that were popular in the mid-20th century from 1945 to 1969. Now, do you recall that baby boom that happened in the US and Canada when soldiers were returning from World War II back to North America? Well, the same thing happened with houses. Essentially because the government was like, we need a place to put all of these people and these now families that they're creating. The children that were born and raised in these homes, these were our baby boomers and our Gen Xers. When the time came for them to purchase their own homes or to start their own families, they actually rejected MCM homes because they were more attracted to postmodernism and the contemporary style of architecture coming into the market at that time. However, their offspring, we have, Xennials, Millennials, Gen Z. Well, they don't actually want the suburban cookie cutter home that they grew up in. That is actually the most dominant demographic purchasing MCM homes, Millennials and Gen Z. Now, it's no secret that Millennials and Gen Zs have a different set of values, that their work life is different, their actual overall lifestyle is very different than the generations before. They desire a home that has a sense of heritage, but is more flexible. It's open, it's light filled. I'm getting a little blinded right now. They're working from home a lot more. There's creatives, there's entrepreneurs. They sometimes have to host meetings in their home. So the fluidity of the space is really important. And a mid-century modern home is absolutely perfect for them. And also much different than the generations before. Houses are costing more than a sack of potatoes. So they really have to be wise with how they're investing their money. Okay, I'm getting blinded a little bit here. So sorry, I had to just adjust things. We have the sound on point today. Hopefully I'm not yelling, but the light is a little crazy, but we'll get there. So also different from the generations before are the price of houses. It's expensive now. It's very expensive. So if they can afford a house now that meets their lifestyle needs and just needs a bit of renovation, they're open to that and they're willing and even enthusiastic about doing that work. Open your TikTok and you will see what I'm talking about. They're okay with it. We are still having bidding wars over houses that are almost 80 years old. I mean, we understand why, but how is that even possible? Well, mid-century modern homes are really well designed and really well built. You see, after World War I, there are these Bauhaus-trained architects that were being exiled from Europe and were fleeing to the United States. So they were really well positioned for the housing demand that was created by the World War II soldiers returning home. But there was a catalyst to their influence. There was a magazine called Arts and Architecture that sponsored the famous Case Study Homes program. And this program ran from 1945 to 1966. The program featured 36 prototypes for low budget, fast construction homes made of post-war mass-produced materials. So think of things like steel, aluminum, concrete, and other prefabricated modules. Of the 36 houses, 25 were actually built in California, mostly Southern California, and Arizona. The houses were open to the public to tour, and they featured this retro futuristic style, these huge massive windows that blurred the lines of indoor-outdoor living, and they had this philosophy of form over function. They heavily influenced the homescapes. The public, it had a massive effect, as well as like architects, designers, developers, and builders who were all looking to profit at this time from this demand. Similarly, here in Canada, the Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, they hosted a program called Homes for Canadians in 1947. And this featured 30 low to moderate budget homes with plans that were designed to encourage essential Canadian living. These homes were expertly designed around the very concept of harmonious living. And they also included materials that, by their very nature and composition, are highly durable. So think of steel and structural materials, but also think of innovative materials such as linoleum and gypsum for that time. And as these homes age, they are built from highly durable materials. But some of these selections, particularly finishes, are just simply not up to snuff in today's market because of sustainability and really the aesthetic. However, these homes are actually a renovator's dream because they are not highly ornate or complicated to dismantle. This resonates so deeply for me because I purchased my 1964 MCM home from the original owner. When I saw the listing photos, I could see it had the original finishes and some alterations, definitely done in the 90s, that needed to be done, but that was okay. The house was structurally sound. It would only require complete renovation to the kitchen and the bathroom and some finishes throughout the house. This type of renovation is highly desirable for anyone who's looking to limit expenses by, not dealing with anything structural while still having a significant impact on the house and curating it exactly to your own taste. So when you're viewing homes, just do not be put off by worn or outdated finishes. Those are things that can definitely be changed very easily. You can absolutely renovate an MCM home to bring it into today's kind of aesthetic while not losing the essence of the house. And in fact, that's one of the other great points about MCM homes is that they have such a strong aesthetic, like they have such a strong framework because the house was about what happens inside. It was about the inhabitants. It was about the families who would live in them. It wasn't about the rooms themselves. Like when you contrast that to something like the Victorian era, that was ostentatious and it was meant to impress you. MCM homes were about you being in the home, being a family unit, and really what happens there. One of the greatest attributes of an MCM home is that they are timeless and they are flexible, which means they have longevity to them. And that brings us to the point that MCM homes have a lot of opportunity. That timeless aesthetic is really showcased in those Starchitect named properties. And those are the ones that they go for premium dollar. And while those Starchitect named homes are really pricey, there are homes by lesser known architects or developers like Joseph Eichler who created a host of beautiful homes also that are a bit more within reach. Like they're still pricey, but they're more reasonable. Also keep in mind that within that MCM style, like from 1945 to 1969, that's a big spread in what the house can look like. Like my house doesn't look like a typical 1945 home. You can see the difference in building materials, also location and the requirements of living here in Canada versus in the US. For MCM homes in general, the real estate sites that I looked at, they go for 25 to 40% more than non-MCM homes that are comparable and in the same neighborhood. By comps, I mean houses that have maybe the same square footage or same number of bedrooms and bathrooms, but because it's an MCM style, that house will go for more money. And Arch Digest also named MCM homes as the most searched residential style of architecture in the last 5 years. So these houses are popular, they're not going anywhere. If anything, they're just going to increase in their value. A lot of MCM homes were built on very sizable lots as part of that connection to nature philosophy and those building standards of the mid 20th century. Well, some houses are sadly are being torn down by developers who are building, say, like a multiplex on that lot because it's so big, or like a larger single family home. But what that also means is the houses, like the mid-century modern homes that are there on a big lot, they're just increasing in value as the inventory decreases. But if you're a renovator who is intent on bringing that house into the 21st century and incorporating modern efficiencies, sustainable materials, amenities like air conditioning, then you are actually removing obstacles for future buyers and increasing the home's value for yourself to benefit from. And if you can force appreciation by adding an extra bedroom or a bathroom, even extra storage, that's also a way to do it. Definitely consult your interior designer, consult your realtor, especially because the last thing you want to do is over renovate a property in a neighborhood that just will not be able to return that type of investment to you. And of course, nobody has a crystal ball. Like, we don't know, but we can guess and we can predict based on data, not emotions. MCM homes essentially are excellent, whether you're going to buy to renovate and then resell in a couple of years, or if you're going to live in it for a number of years and then sell it later on, or maybe just pass it down in your family. They're excellent properties. They are going to support your family. They are designed that way. They are flexible for the lifestyles that you have. If you own an MCM home, you are owning a piece of your city's architectural and historical record. And another benefit of these properties is, as I mentioned, the large lot sizes, but also the old growth trees that are on those lots. You are not going to get that in a new build townhome complex. It's just not happening. That's another huge, huge benefit. Tree lined is a beautiful term in real estate. So living in a tree lined lot and street is really lovely. Many owners of new builds, they may admire an MCM property, but they just know I don't have the bandwidth to take them on because there is TLC needed for an MCM property. And older properties in general, it is expected that there are going to be some upgrades needed. However, with MCM homes, there are so many specific elements that are inherent to the architecture that you should be aware of. So for example, the foundation. So in Canada, we have basements. It's not very common that you don't, but in warmer weather climates where California and Arizona, where there are many MCM homes, they are built slab on grade. And any shifting of the sediment below, moisture or water that gets into the soil around and into the concrete slab, that can cause corrosion of the steel within the slab, can cause many issues. And that's one thing about water in houses in general, but something to be aware of if you are looking at an MCM home that is slab on grade. Have your inspector pay extremely close attention to evaluation of the slab. You do not want to have to repair a concrete slab. Also, the roof. So the horizontal or low sloping roof lines of mid-century modern properties, well, those are not always the best for water to run off of. So make sure that the water can move and it does not sit and pool in areas on the water, especially if there's like a horizontal roof line. Some of the mid-century modern homes did not have gutter systems or inadequate gutter systems. So that's another thing to look at, because you do not want to pay for a new roof. Windows, the large, beautiful glazing or single pane energy inefficient windows, the ones that blur the indoor outdoors, those can be costly to replace because of their oversized size, as well as some of the custom shapes. I think also be aware that water can corrode some of the aluminum steel framing that would cause it to get corroded or warped over time and also need replacement. Electrical wiring. Older homes in general may not have electrical service that can support today's modern home, but some MCM homes, depending on their size, it can go down to as low as 50 amps. Today's service is like the standard is 200 amps. So that's a big disparity there. Also be prepared, even if you have like lights that are working adequately, everything, be prepared that if you want to make a major renovation to the home that requires some permitting and your city comes out to evaluate, well, they might actually require you to upgrade your electrical service, and that could be an expense that you weren't necessarily prepared for. If you can factor these things into your bid pricing, to what you look at when you go out, also do not ever go unconditional offer without like a home inspection. All things factored in, the durability of the home and the materials and the areas for potential, things to go wrong or TLC that's needed, the timeless nature, the history, the architecture of these homes, your family planning, your lifestyle. I hope this has provided you some information to say like, this is for me or it's not. And if it's not, that's totally fine. But if it's for you, I hope this really supports you in making an informed decision in the winning bid for your mid-century modern home. Be sure to check out my video 3 tips for a successful renovation, as well as my video Design the Moment, because these videos are going to have you looking at a space from the experience of someone who has renovated, as well as from an interior designer's perspective. As I said, I bought this house mid-2024 and I started renovating it in spring of 2025. So I'm actually launching a series called the Reno Diaries, and I'm going to recap some of the renovations I've already done, as well as we'll bring you up to date with the renovations that will be happening. So do subscribe if you would love to get that notification when the Reno Diaries launches. And yeah, I hope to see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.